In this video, we're going to look at the Alabama versus Michigan Rose Bowl matchup in the semifinals. Looking at it from a coach's perspective, and we're going to basically look at a couple different metrics, matchups that most coaches really take seriously, think are keys to winning football games, and we'll either give them 1 or 2 points depending on how much we think that there's an advantage. We'll add them up at the end and see who we feel based on the matchups. You're going to win the semifinal game, go to the national championship between two of the most physical and talented teams in college football. We're going to dive right in. The line on this one is currently at 1.5 for Michigan, so slight lean towards Michigan on this from Las Vegas. But first thing we want to look at is head coaches. Now, obviously for Alabama, you got Nick Saban, won 7 national championships with a couple different teams, one at LSU, 6 with Alabama, and he's not showing any signs of slowing down. So as far as the stats and championships, he's definitely the #1 coach to ever do it. He's obviously the #1 coach in the country right now. Jim Harbaugh, no matter what you say, he's a quirky dude, kind of weird. NCAA's all over him, trying to find a way to get him to shut up or to go away, and he is a different cat. He is a weird guy, but whenever you get around kind of the weird stuff that he says and the quirkiness, he's a top 5 coach. No matter how you break it down. He won a ton at Stanford. He had an identity, and he's actually gotten Michigan back to that identity. They left that just a little bit when they brought in Josh Gaddis to try to get away from that. But then he evolved all that, and when they started winning is when they got back to that identity that he wanted to instill in Michigan. And that's what they have right now. Physical football team, runs the football, stops the run, plays good defense, and that's who he wanted to be when he came in. So obviously Harbaugh's a top 5 coach, but whenever you have to pick a head coach, Saban's obviously the best to ever do it, so Alabama has advantage right here as far as the head coach is concerned. The next thing we want to look at is just the coaching staff, and looking at Alabama's coaches, really looking at the coordinators, and obviously they got a couple that are really good. Tommy Rees, first year in from Notre Dame, brought in a different mindset from Bill O'Brien. Want to run the ball a little bit more, getting some heavier sets, and they've definitely done that. They've evolved around what Jalen Morrow can do ever since about 3 or 4 weeks into the season, and have gotten a ton better through the season now. Some of you guys may just remember Tommy from trying to turn Brian Kelly purple back when he played at Notre Dame, but he's done a really good job at Notre Dame, and then obviously this year, in his first year as the offensive coordinator at Alabama, able to get to playoffs with a different kind of offense with not just elite guys on the outside has been really impressive. Next guy to think about is Kevin Steele, the defense coordinator. He's a coach's coach, which means he's a guy that's seen it all. He can coach the young guys up that maybe don't have as much experience. So he's a really good one. He's been at Auburn, been at LSU. I believe he was at Clemson for a little bit. Maybe gave up 70 and got fired. I don't know. But he's an absolute dog. I mean, he's one of the best coaches in the country, especially defensively. Can't say enough about Kevin Steele and what he's done to bring Alabama's defense back to what it was under Nick Saban. And he's definitely turned the corner right there, and their defense has gotten a ton better in just 1 season. Now looking at Michigan's coordinators, you got Sharon Moore, who's done a great job. He's their offensive line coach and co-OC. We've seen him as far as a head coaching role for about 5 or 6 games this year. And, I'm not sure what they thought the NCAA was going to do to Jim Harbaugh, whether they thought that they're going to throw him in jail or maybe give him the death penalty. I don't really know. But he's a great coach. He's done a great job. He's been in Michigan for a while, so he knows those guys and he knows the ins and outs of going to the playoffs. So he's got a lot of experience in these situations. And he's done an amazing job with that O-line, and it's definitely shown. They dominated all season. Next guy is the defense coordinator, Jesse Minter. And when you talk about Jesse Minter, he didn't have just a ton of experience, but he was at Baltimore with the Ravens with Coach Harbaugh's brother, and then came back to Vandy for a year, and now he's at Michigan. So that's a really quick rise. He's a young guy. He's going to be a guy that's an elite coach, whether it's in the NFL or in college football for the foreseeable future. One of the best coaches in the country. I'm really surprised that he didn't win the Broyles Award or something this year, because he's just that good of a coach and is going to be a good coach whether it's in NFL or college. But on this matchup, as far as picking who has the better coaching staff, is very comparable. Some really good young coaches, and Kevin Steele obviously has the experience. I'm leaning with Michigan, and reason being is I believe Michigan, they have more continuity with these players. They know them a little bit better. They've been in playoffs together before. Kevin Steele and Tommy Rees, this is their first year, so they don't know the players nearly as well. Sharon Moore and Jesse Minter recruited these guys. Tommy Rees and Kevin Steele, they just showed up, and now they're trying to work with them and put them in the best position to be successful. So definitely not a huge lean on the coaching staff, but I'm going to lean with Michigan on this one. The next thing we're going to look at is just the roster. And the way that we can look at the roster is through blue chip ratio and NFL draft prospects. So I'm going to put a point for NFL draft prospects and for the blue chip ratio, but obviously it's not going to be end all be all. Some guys that are great college football players may not be NFL draft prospects. Anyway, for Alabama, their blue chip ratio is obviously #1 in the country. They have 18 5-stars, 56 4-stars, 10 3-stars. So just think about that, 18 5-stars. That's unbelievable. Michigan, number 14 in the country, obviously nothing to sneeze at right there. They have 2 5-stars, 45 4-stars, 38 3-stars. So a little bit of a lean there for Alabama. Now, I know you guys are going to come in the comments and say, oh, they're going to give them a Bama bump every time anybody commits to Alabama, which is maybe true. I don't know. But Nick Saban has been absolutely wrecking on the recruiting trail ever since he got to Alabama, so nothing's going to change there. They're going to be top 1 or 2, depending on the service every year that he's the head coach. Now, looking at NFL draft prospects, Alabama has 4 guys that they think have a first-round grade coming out just this year. So you got J.C. Latham, who's a tackle. Dallas Turner, D lineman, is absolute dog. But then you got 2 corners. So you got Terran Arnold and you got Kool-Aid. It's not just a refreshing drink. It's actually a cornerback that plays for Alabama. He's an absolute dog. And if you got some really good defensive linemen and some really good corners to lock people down, you got a chance to win any game and stop people defensively. So there's 4 guys that they think are going to be first-round picks for this next year. Not even including some of the young guys. You got a safety that's leading the team in interceptions and tackles, who's a freshman that's starting for Alabama. He is unreal, and he's going to be a player that all NFL teams are going to hope that they can get on their roster. But anyway, Michigan, they got one guy with a first-round grade, and that's Chris Jenkins, a defensive tackle who's a stud. I mean, he's running down running backs. He's doing all kinds of stuff. The next guys you got some second and third round guys. You got Blake Corum as a running back. Obviously, running backs are a little bit undervalued right now in the NFL, but he's second and third round guy. You got a safety, Rod Moore, third, fourth round possibility. So, again, lean here goes to Alabama. So the roster, whether it's with the blue chip ratio or NFL, leans towards Alabama. Another thing, when you talk about the NFL, all the way back to 2019, the team that won the national championship had the most draft picks in that year's draft. So this is not one of those things that is very obvious, but the teams that win the championship have the most draft picks that next year, all the way going back to 2019. So it's one of those trends that I don't think it'll continue this year because Ohio State, I think, is going to have the most draft picks this year, but could have a big factor. I mean, it's just talent. And right here on this one, looks like Alabama has just a little bit more than Michigan. Now we're going to look at defense. Now everybody says defense wins championships, which is true, and both these defenses are really good. Michigan's defense is number 2 overall. Alabama's defense is number 18 overall. So right here, you think it's been easy leading to Michigan, but then you dive a little bit deeper into the numbers. Just looking at the offenses that Michigan have played, they've been really bad. Like, the offenses in the Big Ten are horrendous. If you add up their ranking, the offenses that Michigan has played are 92.85 average. So they average being almost number 100. And Alabama's overall ranking for the teams they've played are 47.6. So Michigan played 6 teams. So think about that. 6 teams whose offense was ranked lower than Arkansas. Arkansas was number 106, and an absolute debacle on both sides of the ball. Didn't look like they knew what was going on. Looked heavy, looked fat all season. And Michigan played 6 teams that were ranked lower than they were in offense. It's unbelievable. The best offense that Michigan played statistically was Ohio State at number 36. And everybody knows Ohio State's offense was not near what it's been in the past. So that's kind of shocking there. Alabama played 6 offenses that ranked above Ohio State, including the number 1 offense, number 8 offense, number 9 offense. The number 1 offense in the country was LSU. Number 8 was Georgia. Number 9 was Texas. So those are the teams right there that Alabama's playing compared to the Ohio State team, who's not as great offensively as they've been in the past, and then all those Big Ten teams that rank worse than Arkansas. Second best offense that Michigan played was UNLV. That was the number 46 offense in the country, but it's a group of 5 team. On this one, I think just based off athleticism and how Michigan really hasn't played very many good offenses, I'm gonna lean with Alabama. When you got Dallas Turner, you got a couple corners that are first rounders. I think Alabama's defense is a little bit better than Michigan. Even though statistically, Michigan's one of the top 2 defenses in the country, I still believe Alabama is a little bit better defensively overall. Now we're going to look at the offense, and Alabama's a slightly better offense statistically in yards per play. So 6.36 yards per play for Alabama to 6.12 for Michigan, so not a huge difference. And it's very similar as far as the defenses that Michigan has played. The defenses in the Big Ten are ranked a lot higher than the defenses in the SEC this year. So they play a little bit better defenses as far as the statistics are concerned. Michigan averages 36.69, Alabama's 35.08. So it's not just a huge statistical advantage for Alabama. But what I will say is Milroe is up and down. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. J.J. McCarthy is very even keel for what he does. He's very methodical, and he does a great job being accurate and moving the offense. He's done that all year. And Alabama's offense has been up and down. You just look at some of the games, 17 points. Obviously, I have no clue what's going on with that South Florida game. They were trying to find themselves and playing all different quarterbacks and all that stuff. But struggled against South Florida. Florida struggled against Auburn. It's just one of those things. You can look back, and there were about half a dozen games that were close that they struggled in offensively and weren't just great. Now, obviously, they have the explosive play potential with Milroe and a couple other guys that can really stretch the defense, but Michigan's a lot more consistent. So on the offense, I'm going with Michigan. Not extremely explosive, but those guys have been consistent all year. I think it's going to continue in this game because you know what you're going to get. Everybody talks about special teams. Oh, it's a third of a game. I think they're a little bit overblown. Special teams kind of sucks. Now, obviously, it could cost you a game, but I don't think it's a third of the game. But it is what it is. Got to be good at them or you could get beat. But anyway, both guys have really good kickers. They're really consistent. The only advantage we come up with is kickoff return. Alabama's ranked number 25 in the nation on kickoff return with a 22.86 yard average, and Michigan was number 126 with an average of 14.9. So not real sure how many chances there's going to be for kickoff return. Now, if you're getting a ton of kickoff returns, it's probably going to be an issue because you're giving up a lot of touchdowns. But still, Alabama, they're averaging 8 more yards on the kickoff return, so it's almost a first down of a field position. There's not going to be a ton of these in this game, but There's a little bit of an advantage for Alabama on the kickoff return. All the other special teams are very even. So I'm going to lean Alabama for a point right here. Now we're going to look at the O-line, D-line, how they match up. You're looking at Alabama's offensive line versus Michigan's defensive line. And this is obviously where games are won. This is where this game is definitely going to be won. But anytime you can control the line of scrimmage, it's a huge win for your team. Alabama's offensive line does have a first rounder on it. It's got J.C. Latham, some future first rounders. You got a freshman up there that's going to be a first rounder as well. Michigan has a first rounder in the interior of the line right there that's going to give them a lot of problems running the football. So on this one, I'm going to have to lean with the defense. I think the defense is a little bit ahead of the offensive, especially up front. So I'm going to lean with Michigan on this. And the X factor on this could be how Michigan has to play Jalen Milroe. I'm really not sure if they're going to be able to rush everybody like they typically would, or if they're going to have a couple guys spying like Georgia did, Auburn did. So I'm leaning with Michigan, but obviously depending on how they have to play Milroe, could slide the other way because they may be having to play a little bit less aggressively, especially in the pass rush. So that'll be interesting to see as the game progresses how they have to play Milroe. Looking at Michigan's offensive line versus Alabama defensive line, again, it's one of those things that I think the defenses are a little bit further along than the offenses. So Michigan, the injury to their guard was obviously a bad deal for them. It really hurts them in the pass pro, especially against Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell, two of the better rushers in the SEC. Michigan could neutralize this as far as staying in front of the sticks, getting some heavier sets. They're going to have to chip. They're going to have to do a few things to work those defensive ends to help out those tackles and hopefully get them where it's not just a straight one-on-one. Again, going to lean for Alabama's defensive line over the offensive line for Michigan. Quick look at just the skill guys for each side of the ball. Alabama's those skills versus Michigan's defensive skills. The receivers are not what Alabama receivers have been in the past. There's no guy that's really going to stick out. Isaiah Bond, who's leading receptions, and Jermaine Burton, who's kind of their big play threat guy that's had the most touchdowns this year. Those are two guys that you have to really key on. Running backs, you got Jace McClellan, who's obviously their guy in the backfield. Still doesn't have 1,000 yards rushing. He has about 800, averages just under 5 yards a carry. But obviously, Michigan defensive backs have done a great job keeping everybody in front of them, not giving them big plays this year, and being pretty aggressive. So as far as just skill guys, I think the secondary and safeties, linebackers of Michigan are going to be able to handle these skill guys and win some one-on-ones. Obviously, I think Alabama's athletic enough to complete some balls. I just don't think it's going to be one of those where they're going over the top and making huge plays down the field like they've done this season, which is explosive plays, which is one of the things that Alabama has been known for offensively, is just taking the top off of defenses and having all day back there with their quarterback and just letting that thing rip way downfield. I don't think they're going to have that much time, and I don't think that they're going to be able to get open down the field like they've been doing against Michigan's defensive backs. So let me get to the point. Michigan's defensive skill guys. Looking at Michigan's offensive skill guys versus Alabama's defensive skill guys. Obviously, you got two first-round corners out there. It's going to be tough to get around, and Michigan just doesn't have elite guys on the outside. You have a tight end, Colston Loveland, that third leading receiver, and he's going to be a factor in the middle. He's got 572 yards so far. He's going to be a guy. Obviously, Roman Wilson is their second leading receiver just by one reception, but he has 11 touchdowns. So right there, you're going to have to put your best dude on Roman Wilson because he's the guy that's going to score touchdowns. And then you have to find a way to match somebody up with the tight ends like they did against Georgia with Brock Bowers, because this guy, I don't know if he's that much of a talent, but he's a factor in their offense as much as Brock Bowers is for Georgia. So going to be a really interesting matchup there. Some really good players on the field. I mean, this is going to be some guys that play each other in the NFL for years to come, but going to have to lean towards Alabama. I mean, when you got two first-rounders out there, and you got a couple guys at safety that are young, but they're going to be first-rounders, absolute ball players back there in the back end. Advantage here is for the defense as well for Alabama. We're going to give the QBs their own point system right here, and this is going to be one of the more interesting comparisons right here. You look at Jalen Milroe, obviously one of the most dynamic athletes in college football. Without a doubt, he can create a huge play out of nothing, and the defense has to play him differently than anybody else probably in college football. So, well, you hate to see, if you're a Michigan fan, is some sort of performance almost like Vince Young in the Rose Bowl back around 2004, 2005, whatever it was, when Michigan played over there in the Rose Bowl, and he went absolutely off. So that's the last thing you want to see. They're going to play him a little bit differently, but one thing that will happen, and has consistently happened with Jalen Milroe, is he will get sacked. He's been sacked 38 times. Completion percentage is not nearly as high as J.J. McCarthy. He's a 65% guy. 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, so not just a ton of interceptions, but with a chance for big plays, there's also a chance for sacks and negative plays to get them behind the sticks. So that's one of those things that Milroe could go off and absolutely drop bombs, because he's averaging 15.9 per completion, and that's huge compared to the 12.3 that J.J. McCarthy has. But he could also get sacked. You get in his head, and he's not been consistent. So I'm going to stick with J.J. McCarthy. He's been consistent. 74% completion, 12.3 per completion, 19 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, so only sacked 18 times. So think about that. Milroe's been sacked 38, J.J. McCarthy 18. So this is also McCarthy's third college football playoff game. He's been through it. He's seen the process. He's seen what happens in the playoffs. And he's a leader that the team looks to. He's a lot more consistent throughout the entire year. So on this one, just based off of consistency and experience, going to have to go with J.J. McCarthy. Now, Milroe could go absolutely bananas, but as far as what I'd look for as far as picking games, I'm going with McCarthy. Now we're going to go through the top 5 things that I think it's going to take to win the football game and see who has the advantage. The very first thing we're going to look at is turnover margin. Michigan is plus 17 and Alabama is plus 8. Michigan has caused 24 total turnovers and has lost 7. And then Alabama has caused 18 and lost 10. So pretty glaring difference there from Michigan. And obviously, I also feel good about J.J. McCarthy as far as turning the ball over compared to Jalen Milroe. So definitely going to get a point from Michigan right here on this one. The next thing we're going to look at are explosive plays. And this one's really easy as well. Alabama's a much more explosive football team. Jalen Milroe, quarterback, can create a big play at any time. As far as explosive plays, they're a huge factor in winning games, and Alabama has advantage here. Another huge factor to look at is red zone efficiency, and both teams have pretty similar touchdown percentages when they get into the red zone. Michigan's was 71%, Alabama's was 70%, and they both have good kickers. So really, as far as scoring points down there, it's going to be high percentage. But what you really want to look at is touchdowns, and very even right there. As far as defensively, Michigan is quite a bit better in the red zone as far as giving up touchdowns. They've only given up 43% touchdowns for the red zone trips that they've given up this year, and then Alabama's given up 53% of touchdowns. Now, of course, Alabama's seen a lot better offenses than Michigan has, but still going to lean with Michigan on this one. They have a 10% advantage right there as far as touchdowns in the red zone, so that's a pretty big statistical advantage for Michigan right there. Next thing we're going to look at is just first down. Who's going to win first downs? Who's going to stay in front of the sticks? Who's going to be the more consistent offense moving the football to stay on the field and not getting in long yard situations? Both offenses are going to struggle in long yard situations. Obviously, as a defense with Jalen Milroe back there, you got to play him a little bit differently, especially when you know it's going to be a pass. Michigan, as long as they can stay in front of the sticks, they can stay out of those long yard situations where you have those defensive ends that can really tee off and get after the quarterback. So right there, first down is going to be crucial in this game. But I see Michigan being able to stay in front of the sticks a little bit better than Alabama. Alabama's obviously more explosive, but I think Michigan's going to be a little bit more consistent running the football. Higher completion percentage by J.J. McCarthy and the rest of the offense as far as throwing the ball out there and with their play actions. I just feel like Alabama's going to get behind the sticks a little bit more than Michigan will. Could be a huge factor in the game. The last factor we're going to look at is rushing. Who's going to be able to stop the run? Who's going to be able to impose their will on the other team's defense and just run the ball when they need to? And obviously, Alabama's been up and down with this all year. Michigan has been very consistent as far as being able to run the football in crucial situations against some good defenses as well. One thing that comes to mind is that game against Penn State when they just ran the ball to end the game. And Penn State's #1 defense in the country, so I'm going to have to give this advantage to Michigan as well. They're going to be able to run the ball consistently, and they've shown that against really good defenses, and I think that'll continue in the playoff. The very last thing we're going to give out right here is a point for intangibles, and really no issue with either one of them having any kind of home field advantage or anything. It's pretty far for both schools to go. However, Michigan has been in the playoff. This is the 3rd straight year now. Obviously, they haven't won, but I think the intangibles of having a senior-laden team that's been to the playoffs, a team that's motivated and been motivated all year by external factors. I just think they're the more experienced team, and they'll probably make a few less mistakes than what Alabama will. Now, obviously, it's not a huge lean for this, but I feel like Michigan has the intangibles and the motivation. I'm going to give Michigan a point right here on this one. So on this one, with all the factors that we feel are big as far as winning football games, it's a lean towards Michigan. We picked Michigan to win and Michigan to cover. Obviously not a huge lean for this one, but I feel like with all the different factors that go in Michigan's favor, I think they're going to find a way to win. Jalen Milroe in the offense could go off. That's obviously one of those things where you're looking at it and you just don't know what you're going to get there. Is he the guy that played against Georgia? Is he the guy that played against Auburn? Really don't know, and that's 2 weeks apart. So could get anything from Milroe. He could look like a Heisman Trophy candidate and pull something out like Vince Young did in 2003, 2004, or he could look very pedestrian. Depending on how Michigan is able to play him in space is going to be the key. So really could go either way, but we're going to go with Michigan to win and to cover in this one. So definitely wouldn't mortgage the house to go bet on this one, but it's going to be a great game, and I think Michigan's going to end up pulling it out in the end.